All right, it's our signing day live stream. Live stream number 1 of signing day. Figure it's National Letter of Intent signing day. We should do something special for it. Can't just do our regular Wednesday night show. We gotta, we can't just do the regular Wednesday night show and all the content throughout the day and all the signing day capsules and the interviews and the analysis and all those breakdowns. This morning Pitt video that we put out today. Thought we need to do a few more live streams as well. So we're gonna do not 1, not 2, but 3 live streams here on National Letter of Intent Signing Day. It'll culminate, of course, tonight with the weekly Panther-Lair show. That'll be right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then we'll have a live stream this afternoon around 12:30, kind of a lunchtime live stream that you can tune in for. And then we have this one here in the morning. I thought 8:45 would be a good time to start things off. Just because at this point, you've got a lot of the letters of intent have been signed and they're in. Just a few sort of outstanding. We'll talk about that in a second. But I figured most of the guys will be signed. Most of these things will be in. We could talk about them and talk about any interesting developments or the guys who did sign, what we noticed about the class and that kind of thing. So I thought, we'll go live at 8:45. We'll come back again around 12:30 to talk about anything that's happened between now and then. And then we'll have the live show tonight. Of course, I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and especially today, recruiting, as everything's going on in the recruiting world. And the message boards are lively this morning, discussing all the new commits, or not new commits, but all the signings, all the guys who are now officially Pitt Panthers after being committed for, in some cases, as long as 6 months or more, depending on how you count it with Zion Fowler. But they become official today. And so it's a big day on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Everybody's on there. They're very active this morning. So if you're looking for other Pitt fans to talk to about Pitt's recruiting class, that's the place to go. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And we have our YouTube channel here, which is where we're doing all these things today. We had the morning Pitt video earlier today. We've got 3 live streams. We're going to be releasing video interviews throughout the day with Pitt's commitments and signings in the class. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So while you're here, like this video and click that subscribe button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button, as the kids say, or maybe they say smash the like button. Do you smash both of them? Either way, don't use a hammer or something. I think our crowd skews a little bit on the older side, so in case you're confused, just push the button. Push the like button on this video, push the subscribe button, and make sure you turn on notifications. That way, when we do sort of unexpected live streams like this one or the one at 12:30 today, or even the live show tonight at 8:30, you turn on notifications, you'll get an alert sent to your phone so you never miss any of it. So all that preamble out of the way, here's where we stand on National Letter of Intent signing day. It started about 108 minutes ago, 7 a.m. The faxes can start rolling in, or emails, or however it is that the kids send them these days. And it's pretty much what you would expect. 16 out of, Pitt entered the day with 18 commitments from high school prospects, plus 3 transfers who are on board. So far, 16 of the 18 recruits have sent in their signed letters of intent, and 2 out of the 3 transfers so far. The only recruits who have not sent them in yet are Israel Polk and Ty Diefenbach. They're both in California. So I think you have to go, I think typically what they say is it has to be 7 a.m. local time for the recruits. So those guys, I don't think they'll be able to. I think it's local time for the recruits, not local time for the school. I don't think those guys could have woken up at 4 a.m. their time and sent the letters in. Actually, no, it's local time for the recruits, actually, because I remember Sam Vanderhaar last year sent his in, and it was like 10 o'clock the night before, or even earlier than that, because he was in, Australia and had been, he was hours ahead of time. So it's local time for the recruits. So Ty Diefenbach and Israel Polk won't be able to send their letters of intent in until 10 a.m. Eastern time, because that'll be 7 a.m. Pacific time. So we're waiting on those 2. The other one we're kind of keeping an eye on is Cruz Brookins, defensive back from Steel Valley. He's going to be announcing here around 10:15. Once I finish this live stream, I'm going to head out to Steel Valley and document his announcement. We'll post updates on Twitter and on the message boards, get video and interviews and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have lots of coverage of that. So we're waiting on that one. And then out of the transfers, the only transfer who has not put in his letter of intent yet is Phil Dracovic, or at least the only one that's not been announced as signed is Phil Dracovic, the quarterback transfer from Boston College. Sort of waiting on that, and we'll kind of keep an eye. I have the notifications turned on for Pat Narduzzi's Twitter account, so we'll see. We'll make sure, we'll kind of keep an eye on when he announces that, and we'll talk about that when it happens. I don't see any update yet, but we'll keep an eye on it. No surprises so far, nothing unexpected. And I think the guys that we were sort of wondering about, the guys that there were maybe questions about late in the recruiting process, they're all in. They're all signed. And really, I think there were 3 guys that we talked about late in the recruiting process as being potential, watch out, keep an eye on those guys. One was Jesse Anderson, defensive back from Cardinal Gibbons in Fort Lauderdale, just because he got an offer from Auburn, I think, late last week. And so that raised some eyebrows. Watch out, Auburn trying to steal him. Well, that never even came to fruition. I think by the end, he got the offer Thursday maybe, and I think by the end of the day, he was on the phone with Corey Sanders, the safeties coach, and everything was worked out. Everything was fine. So that one never really went anywhere. The other 2 that we were keeping an eye on, though, that were of concern over the past few weeks, and maybe even longer, were Jordan Bass and Shadarian Harrison. Bass committed to Pitt over the summer, or committed in like June. It was Pitt or Virginia Tech. He committed in June, didn't announce until September. In between June and September, Virginia Tech worked hard on him. Throughout the fall, they kept working hard on him. North Carolina got involved late. South Carolina got involved late. There was some real pressure to get Jordan Bass, and there was a time, probably in the last week or 2, where it looked like Bass might not sign until February. And here's the thing. If you have a commit, and he's committed before December, or he's committed before the December signing day, I should say, and he tells you he's not going to sign until February, you don't have a commit. It's no longer, he is back on the market, whether he's made it official or not, or whether he's made it formal or not. And Pat Narduzzi has said that too, that he sort of approaches it as such, that if there's a recruit and they don't sign in December, or there's a commit and they don't sign in December, then they're no longer committed. The coaching staff is approaching it as if that spot is open. And doesn't mean they're not going to try to keep recruiting those guys, but that's how they're approaching it, is as if that spot is open. And so if Jordan Bass were to delay his signing until February, that would have been a major concern and probably a pretty good sign that he is not going to end up in Pitt's class. But he signed today. The other one is Shadarian Harrison, defensive back from Florida, who I think as long as he puts in the work, and stays at Pitt and nothing sort of derails it, like, he's got all the ability on the field to be one of the best commits in this class. I mean, he's got a chance to be the best recruit in this class. And it might come down to him or Jordan Bass. Like, those 2 guys, looking at them right now on signing day, before they ever get to college, those 2 guys look like they are the best recruits in this class. And they have probably the highest ceiling of anybody in this class. And Harrison continued to get recruited throughout the fall. Miami offered late. Florida State and Oregon were pushing hard for him. And he's another guy who over the last 2 weeks, and I wrote this on Panther-Lair.com. There was a point where I wrote, it's probably at some point last week, I said, look, it's looking more and more like Pitt's not going to sign Shadarian Harrison. Because I think he was sending that message to the coaches that he was intending to wait to sign until February. And again, same thing. If he waits to sign until February, he's not in the class anymore. He's not committed anymore. The coaches would still try to get him, but you can pretty much sign off on that one. It's not gonna happen. Well, they kept working at it, kept working the relationships, kept working the connections, kept doing everything they could to keep him in the class, and Shadarian Harrison signed. And so, I probably would have downplayed this if those guys did go somewhere else, but these are probably the 2 best recruits in the class, as it's currently constructed. At worst, they're 2 of the 3 best, but I have a hard time saying who I would put over either one of those guys. I don't even know which one of those 2 I would pick as the number 1 recruit in the class, but I think Bass and Harrison are the top guys here. And there was a real, it went down to the wire, at least, into the weekend. I'm not sure when it got solidified with each guy, but I think by Monday, Pitt felt pretty good that they were going to hold on to both guys. But I still think they were sweating it a little bit until those letters came in, because you just never know what's going to happen. But here, they got him. They held on to him, and Jordan Bass, Shadarian Harrison now part of the recruiting class. And I think that's huge. I think those are guys who, we'll see who can play early. I think there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not you're able to play early and contribute as a freshman, but these guys have bright futures. I think both of them, as long as they stay the course and work hard and all those things that they're asked to do, they have all the ability. Bass was a two-way standout for a Phoebus team in Hampton, Virginia that went undefeated and won a state championship. He was a huge part of their state title. And Harrison also won a state championship as a big piece of the secondary. I think Pitt coaches love how he projects either at corner or safety. Bass projects as a linebacker at Pitt, probably in that star linebacker position. And, this whole linebacker class, I'll kind of segue out of those two guys into the linebackers in this class because, Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles from Ohio, and Braylon Lovelace from Leechburg. This is the three guys, right? Yeah. All three are they're all different players, but they all sort of have they all fit the same mold of safeties. Braylon Lovelace played, I think, middle linebacker at Leechburg. But, I mean, they're sort of big safeties or linebackers who can run. You can pick how you want to term it, but that's sort of what they are. And I think Pitt is really prioritizing athleticism at the linebacker position. I mean, you look at, Bengali Kamara and Solomon DeShields. You look at Kyle Lewis, who signed last year. Marquand Pope, who signed last year, had a medical issue. He's not going to be able to play, but he was a safety in high school. Same thing with, Bass was a safety and a wide receiver at Phoebus. Rasheem Biles, I think, was playing safety and probably some offense as well. Braylon Lovelace was a 4,000-yard rusher at Leechburg. Now, he's playing single-A ball, so he's going to play both sides. And to be quite honest, I mean, in single-A ball, there's not as much size. So a guy like him would play middle linebacker, but if he was at a bigger school, he'd probably be a safety as well. And so they went for this sort of type of linebacker prospect, guys who can get out and run because they know that's what you need. Now, particularly when you're playing in the ACC, but really when you're playing in just about anywhere in college football. You need linebackers who can run, who can get out in coverage, who can chase down receivers, who can attack screens, as well as being physical enough to play against the run. And I think that's what they got in these three linebacker recruits, Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles, and Braylon Lovelace. So that's just a couple early storylines. I think the signings of Bass and Harrison are the biggest ones so far today. And I only say so far because there's always that 1% chance some other surprise happens. I don't even have any idea what that would be. This is not some wink thing that, hey, watch out, this is coming. This is just me saying that there's always some weird possibility out there. There's always the chance that somebody who decommitted could recommit, like we saw yesterday with Zon Fowler, the wide receiver who committed to Pitt like last October, decommitted this fall, and then decided last night to go back into the class and ended up signing with Pitt today, part of a 4-man receiver class, along with Lamar Seymour from Miami, Kenny Johnson from Eastern Pennsylvania, and Israel Polk from California, like I mentioned. Again, some real playmakers in that group, some real playmakers. I talked about that on the Morning Pitt today, that this class, coming into this morning, they have 18 commitments, and 6 of them are offensive skill guys, wide receivers and running backs, 4 receivers and 2 running backs. So I think they tried to rebuild some of their offensive playmaker spots and position groups with this recruiting class. Let's get into the live stream here. I want to check on all the comments and questions and see what everybody's talking about. That's sort of the brief overview. Just some quick storylines. Like I say, we're going to have another live stream at 12:30. We'll talk about more storylines then. We'll have another live stream tonight at 8:30. We'll talk about more storylines then. Let's see what here. Kevin Ploucher says, what a week so far. I know it's all about signing day, but that basketball team, a win is a win. Kevin, you're getting us off topic here, man. This is the signing day live stream. No, that was quite a win for Pitt last night. Holding on, barely holding on, still counts as holding on. And yeah, they blew a 20-point lead, but they managed to make the plays at the end. I have a lot of thoughts on that game. Kevin, tune in for the 8:30 live stream tonight, and we can chat about it. SCD 385 says, so we aren't expecting any surprises. Look, there's always a possibility of surprises. That I can't rule anything out, good or bad. I mean, who knows what could happen? I mean, anything. One of the guys who signed today could turn around and petition the NCAA to get out of his letter of intent. Anything is possible. There could be bad surprises. There could be some shocker out of nowhere. I mean, look, we really didn't have any indication that the Zion Fowler thing was happening. I didn't really know that was in the works. So no matter, even though I feel like we reported a whole lot over the last couple of weeks on what Pitt's been doing recruiting wise with high school prospects and transfers, ultimately you've got 10 coaches, 10 assistant coaches, plus one head coach, plus a whole recruiting support staff, all out there working on things. And, you've got me and Jim Hammett trying to track it all down. And so, you got, just by the numbers, they've got a lot more resources than we do. And so there are going to be things that we miss. There could be a recruit, or more likely a transfer out there that we're not really aware that Pitt is Pitt is involved with, and something could pop up there. And again, this is not a wink, hey, watch out for this, I know something's happening. I don't like to do that thing where, I say like, well, I know something and you don't know it, but you're going to have to wait for me to tell you. I'm not doing that. I try not to do that. I try to avoid it as much as I can. All I'm saying is, it would not surprise me if there are other transfers that Pitt is involved with that we are not aware of. Guys that they may announce today, or maybe can land later in the week. There's some guys we know about, some guys we've been reporting on and tracking. Some guys, but there could be some surprises out there. I think as we come into today, we're looking at the 18 recruits, plus Cruz Brookins, plus the 3 transfers. That's sort of where the focus is. Let's see what just popped up on the notifications. Looks like just always got to keep an eye on that and see what Panther-Lair.com's tweeting out. Nothing happening yet. Elliot Lee says, finally a stream UK time friendly. Yeah, we are reaching out across the pond with this live stream so everybody can watch it. Plus, we just wanted to talk early, like I say, just to kind of recap everything that's happened so far. Kevin Potcha says, seems like a comfortable start to signing day. I like it. Yeah, it's going the way it was expected to. Like I say, I think the main things you were watching for today, I mean, you want to see everybody get signed, but the main ones were Jordan Bass and Shadarian Harrison. Even though I had pretty good information as of yesterday that both of those guys were in, and that's Harrison right there on the screen. If you want to see, sitting up on the sink or wherever he is. Pretty good information that both of those guys were going to sign. And I think the Pitt coaches would even say this. I mean, they might not say it publicly, but I think they would admit that until that letter comes in, you just don't know. And that's the case with everybody. That's the case with every recruit. But it's especially the case when you're talking about recruits who maybe wavered a little bit, or gave you some indication that they might waver a little bit, or gave you some indication that they might not sign now and might wait till February. If you've had those conversations and then they turn around and say, it's okay, no, we're going to be good, we're going to sign and everything's okay, you kind of, you're crossing your fingers until the letter actually comes in, because you know that at least the thought has been in their mind to hold off on signing. The thought has been in their mind to kind of wait and maybe not sign with Pitt right now. And that raises a red flag. So you are crossing your fingers until those letters come in. I think they felt good that they were going to get a letter from, Montravius Lloyd and Braylon Lovelace and Kenny Johnson and, Maverick Gracio, all these, TJ Harbison, all these guys seemed solid, but I think there were a couple that they were sort of, like I say, crossing their fingers on. And when they got Jordan Bass and they got Shadarian Harrison, those were big. And you can see Panther-Lair.com's tweets on both of those guys, Harrison and Bass. It said, he is in. It was sort of emphasizing the point that they know this thing got a little dicey over the last couple weeks, and it was big to land those two guys. Let's see. Noel McGuire says, I try not to cry about star rankings, but it makes no sense that Jordan Bass isn't a 4-star. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I'll say it right out. Like I don't take sides against the family, We're obviously part of the Rivals.com network, and the advantages far outweigh the challenges when it comes to being affiliated with that network. I mean, there's a lot that we're able to do in terms of our coverage, in terms of our reporting, because of being part of the Rivals.com network. I'm very happy here. I think this is the ideal place to be, because we're able. Like I say, I think we're able to do a lot of the things that we do on a lot of levels because we're part of the Rivals.com network. But when I think something's wrong, I'm going to call it out. And I think Jordan Bass is underrated as a 3-star prospect. I think Shadarian Harrison is underrated as a 3-star prospect. I think Lamar Seymour can make a legitimate case for a 4-star ranking as a wide receiver out of Miami. I thought there was like one other. They got Isaiah Neal up to 4 stars, which I think made sense. He should be. I think he's a playmaking defensive tackle. But Bass and Harrison are really the two. And Jesse Anderson, you could probably make a case for. The tough thing with Jesse Anderson is he pretty much played mostly receiver this year at Cardinal Gibbons. Last year, he played 2 ways. This year, he was kind of dealing with an injury. He hyperextended his knee. And so his coaches kind of took it easy on him, didn't play him both ways. But look, Cardinal Gibbons is a big-time school in Florida. And it's the kind of school where they usually have the talent and the depth that guys don't play both ways. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, they probably go whole years without playing guys both ways on a regular basis. Jesse Anderson played both ways last year as a junior in 2021. He was good enough that the coaches couldn't keep him off the field whether they had the ball or not. Now, this past year, like I say, he had an injury. They were trying to be careful with him and protect him, and so they only used him on offense. But that's how good he is. It makes it challenging, though, because if we're projecting him as even though Rivals ranks him as a wide receiver, if we're projecting him as a safety or a corner, it's hard to kind of give him an appropriate star ranking when you really only have film on him as a wide receiver. But I do think, I think Bass and Harrison absolutely should be 4-star prospects. I think they had good offer sheets. I think the schools in pursuit tells a lot of the story. I think the production tells a lot of the story. I think the fact that they were key players on undefeated and state championship teams. I mean, Bass's team went undefeated. I don't think Harrison's team went undefeated, but they still won a state championship. The fact that I think there's a lot you would look at and say, this is a 4-star kid. I think those guys, I think we'll look back, and again, as long as they stay the course and they do what they need to do, we're going to look back and say, boy, those guys were underrated. Just like we look back and say, boy, Jordan Addison was underrated. Boy, Izzy Abanikanda was underrated. Boy, I wouldn't really say Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett ended up being a great college player. I think he was probably appropriately rated coming out of high school. But Addison for sure. Abanikanda, I think, merited a higher ranking. And I think the 2 guys in this class are Bass and Harrison should probably be ranked a little bit higher than they are right now. Let's see. Andy Brabender says Antonio Kamen, Isaiah Neal, Jordan Bass, and Shadarian Harrison give the class at least 4 foundational prospects for defense. I would go further than that. To be honest with you, I think, like I say, Jesse Anderson, I think is a really good defensive back in this class. I think with Anderson and Harrison, you've got 2 really good guys who could play corner or safety. I think if they had Cruz Brookins later this morning, as we expect them to, that's another guy who can project like that and play really well as a defensive back. I think, like you mentioned, Isaiah Neal and Jordan Bass. I think Rasheem Biles has a high ceiling. I think Braylon Lovelace might take a little bit of time, but there's a lot to like there in terms of athleticism and IQ. Smart kid, good kid, hard worker. Antonio Kamen, like you mentioned, is a defensive end. Look, I think we're at a point now, or we should be at least, where we can pretty much trust this staff on its defensive recruiting. I think they've got enough success stories of guys that they recruited, that they brought in, that they've developed, guys who fit the system. I guess I would say this. They know what they're looking for on defense. You know what I mean? They know the types of players they want. They know the guys that they want to be, at all 3 levels of the defense. They know what they're looking for. They've identified the types, and they've gone out and gotten them. And I think the success on the field, and kind of how it reflects on the recruiting and evaluation and development, they pretty much earned the benefit of the doubt. Certainly along the defensive line. I would say the secondary as well. And if you want to, reserve judgment on the linebackers, that's fine. But I think you see the development of Bengali Kamara this year, and Solomon DeShields, plus the Servassier Dennis recruitment. I think if you want to hold back on the linebackers, that's fine. But I think on the whole, we can probably trust this staff's defensive recruiting. And not that every guy they get is going to be a star, but there's a pretty decent chance of the guys they get contributing, or at least I think we can assume or give them the benefit of the doubt that they're getting guys who fit the defense well. And then it's, a matter of, some guys work out, some guys don't. You're just going to inevitably have a hit rate like that. But I think we can give them more or less the benefit of the doubt when it comes to recruiting on that side of the ball. Offense, that's a different story. We could talk about that maybe at 12:30. But for defense, I think we can say, yeah, they know what they're doing. They're pretty good at their jobs. John Crobot says, are they going to bring back the black uniforms? I see all the recruits with them on. I hope not. I hope they don't bring back the Steel Panther. There's Kenny Johnson wearing it right now. I didn't like those Steel Panther uniforms personally. And I don't think they've worn them since 2020. I don't think they wore them last year. I think they wore them twice in 2020. Maybe the recruits like them, I guess. To me, I think if you're Pitt, you've got a pretty great color scheme with blue and yellow and occasionally white. So I don't really think you need to mess with that very much, but that's just me. If the players want to wear them, then maybe they'll wear them. But I say stick to the classics. I don't, we haven't seen those Steel Panther uniforms in a while, and I don't really think we need to. Let's see. Michael Zimmerman says, 1, who among the incoming class has the best chance to see the field next season? 2, who is the biggest dark horse in the class? Who has the best chance to see the field? This is always tricky to figure out. Like think about positions that typically do play as freshmen, right? So running back. And they're bringing in Montravius Lloyd and TJ Harvison. But if they have Rodney Hammond and Sibo Flemister back, I guess a freshman could end up being the number 3. TJ Harvison could end up being the number 3, or maybe Trey Lloyd could end up being the number 3. So maybe one of those guys, but as a third team role. Wide receiver, possibly. I think there's a chance there. I'm not sure how enamored they are with some of the younger classes of wide receivers on the roster right now. And so maybe, even if Jared Wayne comes back, even if they add a transfer, they're still not going to be terribly deep at wide receiver. You're going to need someone younger to step up. And whether that's like a Miles Alston or an Addison Copeland or Che Wabuko, I think you've got just as good a chance of one of those guys as you do with, Lamar Seymour, who's enrolling in January, Kenny Johnson, Israel Polk or Zion Fowler. I think, it could be. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those freshmen step into like the number 5 wide receiver role. And that's if Jared Wayne comes back and if they get a transfer. If one of those two things or both doesn't happen, then the chances obviously increase. Defensively, they built up so much depth. Are they going to need Jordan Bass or Rasheem Biles or Braylon Lovelace this year at linebacker? Maybe. Depending on who leaves and who comes back. If you get Shane Simon back for another year, you obviously have Brandon George, you have Solomon DeShields and Bengali Kamara, and you've got kind of a solid 4 right there. You need to fill it out with guys like Buddy Mack or maybe a Kyle Lewis or somebody like that is ready to play. Aiden Henningham has been around for a while. If he gets healthy, maybe he could contribute. But maybe you do get Bass on the field. Maybe you do get Biles on the field. It's a possibility, but stepping into a big role, I'm not so sure. Corner is sort of the same way. Shadarian Harrison could probably play corner, as a freshman. Is he going to have the room, though? If you have MJ Devonshire back, I'm not sure what AJ Woods is going to do or Marquez Williams is going to do, but, Rashad Battle could potentially be out there at safety or corner. Javonte Royal, although he played some snaps on defense, at wide receiver in the Miami game. You guys like Rylan Gandy and Noah Bigelow. There are a lot of young defensive backs on this roster. Are, Harrison or Anderson or, Cruz Brookins, if he commits, later this hour, actually, or in the next hour, are they going to crack through some of that wall of younger guys that are there? They'll have an opportunity. If they play their way onto the field, they will. But, I'm not sure I see any obvious candidates of, this guy's definitely going to be playing next season, offense or defense. I don't know if I see any obvious ones. All right, we'll get another question or two here, and then I got to run because, like I say, I'm going to head out to Steel Valley to do this. Let's see. I'll just kind of roll through these. See, Benjamin Glazer says you got more on Maverick. Maverick Gracio's defensive end who committed to Pitt. Charlie Partridge kind of pushed for him to get a late offer. Right at the end of November, early December, he was committed to Kent State. Pitt ended up flipping him from that. And, when I talk about having the benefit of the doubt for the defensive staff, I think Charlie Partridge is pretty high on that list. And Partridge pushed really hard for Gracio to get a committable offer. And so if Charlie Partridge is, the way they say it is, he stands on the table. If Charlie Partridge is going to stand on the table for a kid, I mean, you got my support. I'm going to buy in on that. If Charlie Partridge is convinced about it, then so am I. So I'll go with that for sure. Antoine Gibson says, I'm glad Jordan Bass and Shadarian Harrison stuck to their commitments. Pitt is reloading on the defense. I think you're absolutely right. They are. Justin E. says, I may have missed it, but anything new on Kyle Williams? Kyle Williams is a UNLV wide receiver transfer. He's got an offer from Pitt. I think Pitt's really high on his list. I'm not sure what he's going to do, if he's going to announce this week or not. But it seems like Pitt's in good shape. So we'll see kind of where that develops. The Sticky Bandit says those jerseys are awesome. Talking about the Steel Panther jerseys. Pittsburgh needs to get out of the Stone Age. We're always years behind everyone else. I just don't think I just don't think they look good. That's all. You can have alternate jerseys, but they should look good. I don't think those are particularly attractive jerseys. That's just me. Nobody really cares my opinion about it. George Mitchell II says they should wear those jerseys at least once a year. They're obviously popular among the players and recruits. Sticky Bandits says seems like everyone under the age of 30 loves the jerseys. You guys, we're having a jersey conversation. I love it. All right, let's see. George Mitchell II, I'll give you the last comment here. He says, Chris, if Pitt lands Derek Davis, where would you slot him at running back? Behind Rodney Hammond or third behind the Notre Dame transfer? Or perhaps starter if he shows out in camp? So Derek Davis, former Gateway standout, transferring from LSU, hasn't announced where he's going yet. Not sure if Pitt's going to seriously pursue him or not. If they do, I don't think it'll be to play defense, which is where he initially projected coming out of high school. It would probably be at running back. If they do decide to pursue Derek Davis, and if they do take him, and if they take him as a running back, and I can't emphasize the word if here enough, okay? If, then I presume they would bring him in and he would play behind, start off at least behind Rodney Hammond and Sibo Flemister with an opportunity to climb the depth chart. But just like any newcomer, he would start behind those guys. Now, if I'm not sure that Pitt's going to really push for him. That's just the reality of it. I'm not sure that they're sold on him. I think if they want to transfer running back, there are probably other options they will look at. But we'll see how that plays out. All right, I was only going to do this for a half hour. We're already well past that at 33 minutes. But listen, I got to run because I have to get to Steel Valley. We'll be back live again at 12:30 for any updates between now and then. We can take more comments and questions about the class. And then, of course, we'll have our live Panther Lair show tonight at 8:30 p.m. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Before you go, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And stay tuned on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com while we're talking about everything going on with National Letter of Intent Signing Day. I'll have updates from Cruz Brookins' announcement on the message boards right there. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks for tuning in for this early morning. I mean, kind of early-ish. I've already been up for like 4 hours now. Thanks for tuning in for this early edition of the live stream. We appreciate everybody who jumped in the comments and questions. Let's meet back here at 12:30 this afternoon for another live Panther Lair show, another signing day live stream right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So have a good rest of your morning. We'll keep an eye on the letters of intent, and we'll talk to you in a few hours right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.